She's sweet, she's salty, she's smart and craves chocolate every day. Here is your host, the Greek goddess of comedy, Ellen Karis.
I am so excited for this guest today. I love and adore him. And by the end of the interview, if you don't know him, you will too. I guarantee it. But before we start, we always have to thank our sponsor. Who is it? SelectFlex. What is it? It's an orthotic. What is that? It's called also an insert, and you put it in your shoe. Ellen, why do I need this? Let me tell you, everybody needs this because everything starts from the feet up. You need support. A lot of people pronate. They have flat feet. We're on our feet all the time. These are state-of-the-art, better than anything over the counter because there is an adjustability in the arch. That's the patented part of this genius, where you can adjust the arch firm, or extra firm, depending on what your needs are. I do not work out without these. They're great for Uggs, any shoes that have no support. They're amazing. And for Karis Comedy Corner listeners, there is a 25% discount if you go to their website, selectflex.com, selectflex.com, type in family 25, FAMILY 25. You get a 25% discount because you, my listeners, I view you as just like my family, except I fight with you guys a lot less. So go to their website. There's a 30-second. This is why I love my guests. There's a 30-second clip that shows you how to use it. They're fantastic. They're great. Like money back guaranteed. You got to try these. And once you buy one pair, you're going to buy more. And they make a great Christmas present. They're also on Amazon Prime if you need to get them super, super quick. So selectflex.com. We thank them for their support. Get it? I wrote that copy. I know. All right.
And listen, Ellen, not to tag on your commercial, but I pronate. I'm actually going to look into this.
Okay.
I actually I get special running shoes that are expensive that handle my pronation. If I could save a few bucks and use what you're selling here for my other shoes or my more decorative shoes, that sounds like a great product.
Absolutely. Try them out and let me know. Let me introduce you, my friend. I've known this gentleman, and I say gentleman because one of the things I think about when I see you, and it goes for some other people too, and I always remember this. I always remember the people that were so kind to me when I started in this crazy stand-up comedy world business. So our guest today, Tom Kelly, stand-up comedian, and we've had some others before. Warm up person.
Wait, I'm not the first you asked?
I know. Well, I'll tell you who I had before, but I always say this, and I say it even when I'm doing like a solo show. It is such a special skill set. You have no idea how hard it is. He's warmed up Good Morning America, The View, America's Got Talent, Tamron Hall. He's done so much. One of, I think, the most impressive things I've ever seen was I went to, it was like 3 summers ago, I was doing a short film on being short. As you know, I'm short. It was a short.
How tall are you again?
It was just short, 5 feet.
Okay.
And we wanted to get, what we did was we got different angles, different things of what it's like to be short. And one of them I wanted to do was to be at a concert, like at a field, And so as a matter of fact, my nephew helped me. So we went to Good Morning America, and they do these Friday concerts in the park in the summer, and it was Flo Rida. And it was hilarious because I look up, I go to my nephew, that's my friend Tom, and you're there and you're warming up the crowd, and it's in a park outside.
And I couldn't see you in the crowd because you were so short.
I'm so short. I was, and I was far away as well, but it was like, I was so impressed as to how you have handled that. Plus, I've seen it also on TV, but to be there and to see that, you are a natural born host. I want to start with sort of like, how you got started. We had that conversation in the car. And actually, Tom and I got to see each other in August, and he generously gave me a ride back. We were in Babylon, Long Island, and we got to catch up. And I was like, you have to come on my podcast too. You've got so many good stories. But Tom, I love you. You're so funny. You're so nice. You're so
and giving you a compliment, you generously offered to kick in for gas. A lot of other comedians don't do that. You know, they're like, oh, what was the gas? What was the tolls? Oh, you know, like they're like, oh, you were going there anyway, right? Not you. You kicked in, and I remember that.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, thank you.
You made the offer. It's normal, silly. It's silly. No, it's not normal when you're driving other comics, man. Other comics are cheap, and it's crazy. And it's funny. You said a lot in that intro. Mostly the important things I heard were how funny and good looking and talented I was. But I also heard the word gentleman, and I was going to slip in, well, gentleman's club joke. But no, but it's funny. And I mean this as a compliment and a testimony to your talent. I can't believe I was nice to you when you were starting out, because my first memories of you were always of you killing and doing well with it.
Oh, okay.
So what year did you start?
I was taking acting classes in the late 90s, and that is what spawned into stand-up comedy.
Okay.
I was an acting teacher that thought I did stand-up comedy, and I said I didn't. And then so you'll love this. So I was like, oh, then I'll do stand-up comedy, you know, as if, you know, it was just like making cupcakes or something.
Yeah.
I'll just do stand-up comedy, and then this way someone will see me and I'll get a sitcom. That was the thought process. And yeah, although at that time in the late 90s, there were a lot of sitcoms.
And that's sort of what they taught you. If I just keep doing comedy out in Bumblefudge, you know, the bookers will come find me. And at that point, there were. I mean, like if you talk about the Long Island comedy scene, which is where I met you. Were you living out there at the time, or were you commuting from the city to whenever I saw you out there?
No. I always lived in the city. I'm a city person, although I have tons of relatives on Long Island. I used to go to my aunt and uncle's in Garden City all the time. My cousin lives in Port Wash. So like I'm, you know, if I had to have like a second home, it's Long Island. Oh, no, by the way, my husband's from Long Island.
No, so like my first memories of you, if we're, you know, just talking about how easy it felt back then, and you wonder if it is that easy now for anybody. I remember meeting you at the brokerage, was where I was working a lot in the early 2000s. Mm-hmm. And we could argue with all these clubs about whether or not any of them were giving me the amount of work I felt I deserved, or vice, you know, or whatever.
Right.
But if you were in the Long Island comedy scene, especially when I met you, it was right after the quote unquote boom of comedy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And in the 1980s and 90s, for the listeners who may not know, there was an enormous amount of talent that came out of the Long Island comedy pool. You had Ray Romano, you had Kevin James was out there. Rosie O'Donnell was out there. Jackie the Joke Man, who was on Howard Stern, came out there. The amazing Joey Cola, who still sells out clubs out there. He was out there.
Jerry
and then
Seinfeld, Rodney Dangerfield.
Geez, yeah. I mean, Christ, right there. That's the one I was missing, the one from my hometown. And it just, you know, so there was kind of this feeling like if they did it, you could be able to do it too. And you sort of like, this is awful to say, but probably anybody who was around them who failed was gone, or even the people who were around them who didn't do as well, they did pretty well. You know, like I always say, Joey Cole is the last guy on Long Island who is from Long Island who could still sell out Long Island rooms. Mm-hmm. You know, there's, someone who never he never had a sitcom. You know, now, Joey has a separate and a magical reputation. But when you talk about even being around Joey and guys of that generation, it was like, well, I was Jerry Seinfeld's roommate, and it was kind of an inspiring circuit to be around. Now you wonder if the clubs are the way to be, or there's something fun to be said when you realize your niece on TikTok, who just shakes her booty, has more followers than you do telling jokes. It's humbling. It's let's actually fast forward right now to the present, but I want to go back because I want everybody to hear your story, your journey, as they say. So I, first of all, I went last night to the Broadway Comedy Club Christmas party. I went to the one at the comic strip, and I was looking around saying, this is what the retirement community is going to look like. I worked at Bananas this weekend, Bananas Comedy Club. I had a great time. Was Denise there? I love Denise there. Denise makes the toll worthwhile.
Well, I will tell you that it is and not to sound like a snob. And of course, if the money, if the money were great, I would MC any place. But I don't MC, but I will MC for Denise. And I usually go there once a year. And I have opened for Tom Papa, Drew Carey. I mean, that's what she'll have me open for. I love Pete Corielli, and she had offered it to me last year, but I was booked that weekend. Anyway, so she said she wanted to get me in before the end of the year. As a matter of fact, talking about Joey Cola, last New Year's Eve, I was with Joey Cola and Davin Rosenblatt.
That's a good group of people to spend the New Year's Eve with.
I know, it was great. It was great. We had so much fun. So anyway, the guy that I opened for and Melvin George featured was somebody that was on TikTok. And she said to me, I said, "Who is it?" And she goes, "I don't know, some guy TikTok. I didn't know who he was." His name was Scott Cease. I will tell you, I wasn't, going in, I was like, oh, TikTok, because everybody needs to know, even if the video is like you're laughing and hilarious, that doesn't mean it's going to translate into a stand-up comedy act.
And what's interesting is, as I just now instinctively grab my TikTok, it doesn't go the other way either, which is so weird. And that also doesn't mean you suck. And and it's funny, I'm going through a week of that where I've done some great club work, and maybe the bits were too wordy for TikTok. I don't know, but whatever it is, there were a couple of things that were good that caught on, and then there were a couple of things that didn't. And just because you're good at one doesn't mean you're good at the other. But just because you're bad at one doesn't mean you're bad at the other either, if I were giving advice to comedians. And these, by the way, are the things I pontificate on my podcast every week, twice a week. Mm-hmm. My podcast lately is, that was the biggest part of the intro. I should have gotten that. But my podcast, like you get into the journey, like you, we had that deep chat in the car. My podcast is about me owning the midlife crisis, owning the ups and downs of comedy. And it's amazing what resonates with some people and what doesn't.
Right. Well, it is subjective. But the difference now versus when we came in was it really was about the live stage time and the clubs. And if you can get into the, any of the sort of private party type of stuff. And now it is, everybody is watching everything on their devices. I'm
going to argue, that the devices get you attention, but the money is still made in old fashioned media. I've been saying that to everybody. I use new media to make my money in old media. Mm-hmm. Right. Though it sounds like you with new media, without getting too into who the sponsor is or isn't, I think the real future of show business is entertainers who have something to sell. Mm-hmm. Like the Girls Gotta Eat podcast with Ashley Hesseltine, and I can't remember her, Raina, I believe is the host, but I can't remember her last, Raina Greenberg, maybe. Whatever it is, great podcast. You would love it. It's about 2 30-something-year-old women owning their sexuality, this, that, or the other thing. And they had a couple of sponsors, this, that, here and there, and they went viral, but they're making their money selling vibrators. Mm-hmm. Now, if I could find my version of a vibrator that I could get my large audiences to sell, it doesn't matter what size your audience is, so long as you're selling the vibrators. Mm-hmm.
Oh, well,
not that I'm telling you to sell vibrators.
I'm at the I need hair vitamins stage in my life. So maybe.
Okay. And then there you go. That might be it for you, or maybe it's something else. I mean, I don't want to, and I'm actually not telling. And here's the nice thing about old Tom versus young Tom. I gave up telling people what to do with their lives a long time ago. Oh, okay. It's such a nice feeling. It's funny. A friend who's in the Long Island comedy scene said, "Tom, you should stop giving people advice because it makes you angry." And I'm like, I think there's a lot of people who remember old Tom as giving them advice. At this point, I'm just giving people words of encouragement. And as I get older, I'm learning to talk less.
Mm-hmm. I'm there. So I'm already there because I got my own stuff going on, and I'm trying to, I'm trying to figure it all out also. But I know, but it is true though. You do, and I am the same way. You see a situation or someone talks about something, and you just want to share your experience, whether they take it or not. It's something personal, but I just really like, listen, I wanted to, like, oh, I know what you're talking about. Let me tell you what what I went through with that. Take it or leave it.
Like, it's funny. Like right now, time machine. You see what the year 2022 looks like.
Mm-hmm.
I can send you back. What would you do different?
That's a good question. Well, I'm always trying to work on just being more focused. I mean, I'd love to know the hours that I've clocked on social media, not posting, and sort of, because that's still working for us, but just FOMOing and just like that kind of thing. If I could do that, I don't know if you say different, but if I think about it, like that's probably a month out of the whole year of time. And
and it's funny for me professionally. Like, I had a podcast in the early 2000s that had 1,000 listeners, and I said, I'm giving this up. It's just 1,000's not enough. Now I'd kill for 1,000 easy listeners a week. Now it's a little bit more. I have a very dedicated audience that's about half that size, but they're dedicated, they're into it, blah, blah, blah. Technologically, I might have said work a little bit more on the internet, maybe pick a message or two. And then I might have said be forgiving one or two more ways. But it's funny with the technology, it's like, go back and buy Tesla stock. Well, if you've hung on to your Tesla stock, you're broke again. If you go back and buy Bitcoin, if you hung on to the Bitcoin till this week, you're broke again. So it's interesting seeing where the roller coaster has gone with the technology of all this. I've always believed, for as much as I love the clubs, and right now, even as I'm rebuilding my career, I'm going to the basics of working in the clubs again. The clubs aren't the destination. And I say this out loud, and it gets me alienated from bookers. If you think about what a comedy club is, it's a bar with a light and a microphone, and they just want to get you in, sell you 2 drinks, maybe a little bit of food, and get you the hell out so they could get in the next group of people, sell them their 2 drinks, and get them the hell out. Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing about the internet versus the clubs or being on television shows is the internet gives you a chance to go straight to the consumer. Mm-hmm. The hard part is now, how do you get the consumer to find you? And then now we're back to needing the tastemakers again. Mm-hmm. That's the one thing that's always driven me nuts about comedy. I got into comedy to get away from kissing the asses of popular people and bosses. Mm-hmm. And then I've just come to realize, and I'm only just realizing this now, it's just a different set of popular people and bosses who are not nearly as attractive.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Well, anything in life that you want to be successful with always comes with kissing a lot of ass until you are able to write your own ticket.
I got lucky when I was writing my own ticket for a while. And it may have changed because I failed there were times where I failed to politic. But overall, I got lucky with my career. So we were talking about this in a car. How do you get into doing what I do? So I'm a stand-up comic. I was working as a stand-up comic for a while. I was, getting maybe one Thursday a month at the brokerage. I was getting shows where I had to hand out flyers in Times Square. I was getting a booking here, a booking there, and I was chasing a lot of $20 jobs. And before that, I had worked at Rosie O'Donnell's show as a writer's assistant. And when Rosie was going to The View in 2006.
Wait, I'm sorry, let me stop you right there. Did you meet Rosie on Long Island? She was.
No, not at all. I was an NBA. Oh, God, now we're going to make the career very complicated. So I went to college.
Right.
I mean, God, if we're going really back on my career, derailing the story here, in the year 1994, I went to college.
Yeah. You said you told me in the car you went to like a camp for broadcasting or something, and you loved it.
Yeah, now you're bringing this way back from where I was going. So the point I was going to make is I got good at something. Mm-hmm. but I was a good human being every day.
Mhm.
I was good at it. I clearly asked for the tools I needed. And what would happen would be, like when I finally got to the View, I happened to work for a couple of great people who, they weren't always, there's always that magic thing of God, if, 2 phone calls from these people and you could have your own sitcom. But there was also that 2 phone calls from them and I would get the resources I needed to do a good job because I was a good person. I don't know if that makes sense, but I would be earnest and that was rewarded. And I find outside of, like, you get into, and I guess the longer point I was going to make is in comedy and in life, sometimes it's about just being the good person you can be and trying to get to know as many people as you can so you can gravitate to like-minded people.
Mm-hmm.
Like I find I do well with bookers who put me on stage. There's a light and a microphone and I get the hell out. There's other people where I don't do well, where we'll have beer here every Friday. Let's see if we can talk about the next game. And then, we'll throw you 5 minutes. That's not me, And then there's the other scene right now I found of women who weren't popular in high school booking, who now have 100 million guys around them. And they're now the powerful people. Like I find everybody, male and female, were all like a lot of these bookers were all the popular cheerleader who wasn't popular in high school, but suddenly we're popular now.
Mm-hmm.
And the trick is finding and getting out there enough so you find people who hit your vibe. We could go back on my thing later. Like I hit, at a certain point, I hit Rosie O'Donnell's vibe for what I was doing. I was very military in doing warm up. It sounds crazy, but I would go out, boom, 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 get this done. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. To whoever, with all the celebrities I've worked with over the years. But there was also and I don't fit in well at other shows that don't have this, but it's like, all right, I'm on, the show is flowing through me. It's not my show, but it's flowing through this audience of which I am the head cheerleader.
You have a very analytical mind, and it has served you well, because from what I know, what I've seen, and now what you've just said, you really take the time to assess the situation. I was thinking about, this is so fun. I was thinking about something about myself today, and so I'll just say this story super, super quick. So there was a gig that I saw, a Greek thing in Boston, and last week, and I was like, why didn't they ask me? I called somebody today who I was going to call anyway. He said, I did call you, but he called me on like WhatsApp, which I never use. So he goes, and you never answered. So I had to get somebody else. So we wound up having a conversation and, hopefully in the future. But anyway, I was just thinking about, so I was upset,
Yeah.
And I was just thinking about everything and me and how I react. And there's some other things going on. The Greek market's become a little competitive. There's some other people in there now. It's a long story, but I don't want to say it on the podcast, but I was just thinking about my emotion, because I'm getting, not I'm sitting and crying in the corner, but it's just like I get so like this, and you're so much more analytical about it, and like knowing that there's a process.
Let me be
take
very
a page from your book. That's what I'm saying.
No, but I'll give you a page from your book back at you. We talked about right now. I before the pandemic, there were 10 jobs like mine in New York City. I worked 3 of them. 1 went to California and 2 went away. And unfortunately, I had the one that went to California and the 2 that went away.
Mm-hmm.
Now, other amazing opportunities have fallen on my lap freelance, but I miss the definition of self that you could say in one sentence, he's the guy from this big thing. I miss that.
Mm-hmm.
And this is my career right now. 2 weeks ago, I was opening for the Prince of Wales in Boston.
Wow.
And 2 weeks later, I am grateful to be on Ellen's podcast.
I'm sorry.
No. But right now, But my point about the book or the giving each other pages of the book is, you have to plant seeds. You hope they grow. And I find life is what happens to you while you're looking for other things. I'll give you one piece of advice right now, just what you just said about the Greek market. There's a great book that everybody who can hear my voice right now should read. I read it in the year 1998. It's called Who Moved My Cheese? It's a parable. It's a business book. It was hot for, it was a self-help book for business douchebags in the 1990s. But a great one. It was about 4 mice. And every day these 4 mice would run through the maze. And I'm killing the story because it's a longer book than this. But they all knew there was a lot of cheese in one corner of the maze, right? And they would all run to this corner and they would get their cheese every day. But then there was always this extra mouse who would run around the maze anyway to see if there was any other cheese anywhere else. And the 3 other mice would say, hey, Bob the mouse, whatever the hell the mouse's name was. And there were little names, like one was called Scurry, one was Investing, like whatever it was, they all had little names. But anyway, whoever that mouse was, they would go, hey, why are you looking for more cheese when there's plenty of cheese here? But then one day there was a little less cheese. And then Scurry the mouse would say, no, there's a new pile of cheese, guys, there's a new pile of cheese here and a new pile of cheese there. And then it's an analogy of I think by the time the other mice figured out they should go to another corner of the maze, they all died, something like that. But the moral of the story is when you see the pie shrinking or you see yourself shrinking out of the pie, it's time to find new pies. Mm-hmm. And my podcast, The Tom Kelly Show, is about me trying to figure out what the new pies are. Like you're doing it here with this podcast. I'm doing it with my own. Are there new ways to entertain people and profit? You know what? I mean, I've gotten the call. I won't name the show. We'll mumble about it later. But I know I got pushed out of one show because they didn't want white men anymore. Mm-hmm. And I actually didn't care about the call. What I cared about was that they did it on a unprofessionally short notice to the point where I gave up some big things to be loyal to them. But it's a year and a half later, I got to move on. Right. Pausing for a minute. Also, I'm getting older. There was one of the comedy clubs in this great city of ours. I heard they were looking for new MCs and they sort of put it out. We're looking for new MCs. And I'm like, listen, I have free time. I'd love to do it. And the person was very nice to answer my email. And the person said, well, Tom, we're looking for the next generation of MC, which meant 1, I'm old, and 2, they've seen me and they're not into it. Mm-hmm. So where's my new cheese? That doesn't mean that, and I'll give you a third one. I went to a new comedy club in the city this week. The person online said, Tom, come see me at the club. I went to go see him at the club and he's like, what the hell are you doing bothering me on a Friday? I'm like, first of all, you're sitting there having a beer. Let's go crazy. 2, I know you're not going to put me up in 3 minutes. And 3, at this point, I just want to make friends. I mean, and the best part, and again, 2 weeks ago, the Prince of Wales for a paycheck bigger than I'm going to get from you in a year. Fuck you. But anyway, you have to find the people you vibe with.
I absolutely agree with you. My policy is I'm nice to everybody. And if you're not nice to me, I will probably, I don't want to have a confrontation. I'm not looking for a fight or whatever, but I just won't I won't deal with you. That's it. If you're not in my sphere of, if something came around, I would think of you you're just out.
It gets harder though when the cheese gets smaller. You know what? I love live performing. The number of stages are fewer than they were 10 years ago, managed by fewer people than they were 10 years ago. Caroline's itself is going away. That means more rats scurrying for less cheese.
It's funny. I use the pigeon analogy. I say it's like throwing a crumb to pigeons and they all converge. That's different animal. Let me ask you something. So when you were on very high profile jobs and you were around very high profile people that you built relationships with that respected you, that really had power. Do you and you're not in that space at the moment,
Right.
do you feel like have you felt any different treatment, not from obviously people that are your friends,
Okay, I actually hit this hard in the podcast. I just did a huge episode on Twitch, the guy from Ellen who killed himself.
Yeah.
Now, it's a great episode if you want to hear one man's analysis of somebody he never really knew. I've never met him in person. I don't want to make another man's death about me, but the podcast is a great episode of me making another man's death about me. I think it is, you have to be careful defining yourself with titles and whatnot. You're married. What happens if your husband leaves you? Are you now no longer a wife? You're an aunt. What happens if the nieces and nephews all die or they stop calling you? Does that mean you're not a good person? For me, what was interesting about what I had at Good Morning America is, what you don't like, I don't like the credit. The credit is what you have done. It's not what you can do. It's not where you're going. And I will not be defined by the great things I've done. And I will not be defined, I guess that's, so I am going through exactly what you said. I'm missing two things. One, I miss being able to say, hey, I just saw John Ritter this morning. I don't know why I'm saying his name. He's been dead 20 years, but I just saw John Stamos at the show. And hey, here's my show busy story. I miss that Hollywood end of it. And I miss certain people being starstruck by it. I miss more the easy touristy crowds at Good Morning America. And that's the one thing I bet you that, when you talk about that guy Twitch, I gave up a lot, like you and many of our friends, to achieve whatever success or mediocrity I have achieved. Like to be a comedian, a lot. I gave up weekends. It's Tim Crumpier doesn't remember this moment, but Crumpier, we were at the brokerage and one of the guys at the bar, one of the comedians at the bar says, hey, Tim, I have a new girlfriend. And then Tim sort of yells out, hope she doesn't like going out on Fridays and Saturdays. Hope she likes the Tuesday night blue plate special.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And yeah, listen, I don't want to be too poor me because the joke is also too that dating also gave up on me. But yeah, I miss two things. There's a lot of sacrifice to get where anybody at our stature is. And then I also miss the medication of an easy crowd every morning. Because I'll tell you, 250 tourists clapping for you, especially the Good Morning America crowd. They were generally positive and just happy to be there. 250 schlubs from the Midwest clapping really did fill the hole. So I terribly missed that. I do miss the title, but I also, and I'm having trouble with this. And again, my podcast is about transitions in one word, people in transitions. And it's interesting breaking away from those titles too. I don't know if you're going through this. What if you could never be a comedian again? What would you do? What skills do you have? Like right now, I'm helping a friend who's a Republican in Queens with his handle media for his election campaign that's still going on 6 weeks after the election. Go look up Tom Sullivan, folks. If you can find him on Instagram, there's a powerful story there. 9/11 hero, Army veteran who just genuinely was running a campaign, knocking on doors, handing out flyers in grocery stores, politician. And he won 50% of the vote, and it's being contested in courts right now. I'm enjoying certain aspects of it. I'm enjoying not, and there's certain things I don't like because right now he's caught. I joined him in the more negative stage of the campaign where there's somebody suing him from winning. Basically they're changing the rules. They're changing the rules after the election. I'm rambling a minute, but I'm trying something new. Because you get into this thing of, what are the labels other people put on you? And what do you do when they're gone? And if you think about it, that happens to people all the time. So one thing I've never quite been good at or one thing I need to be mindful of is getting back to the labels I put on myself.
And it really is, because it becomes your identity, right? Because people go, what do you do? It's like the second question, after they meet.
But it is hard when you go into like talking about the guy who runs that comedy club I was I tried to work at, 4 or 5 years ago, I would just say, dude, I'll hand out flyers for I will trick audience members into going to your shows. Mm-hmm. And he would say yes or no. Like I do miss a certain amount of power, but also too, with those audiences from daytime, the weird thing with being an opening act is you're the opening act, and if you do a good job and if the show is good behind you, you're that guy.
Right.
Oh, I like the guy from,
right.
Now there have been shows I've done warm up for, and it's, Tom Kelly said. Well, if you're quoting Tom Kelly, if you're quoting the comedian before the show, that means somebody didn't say something that resonates with you in the actual show. Mm-hmm. So that I'm rambling a bit, but it is a powerful thought of, and that's what the podcast, and that's what the Tom Kelly Show podcast is about. I actually am doing my finances for 2022. I had a couple of great blessings this year that led to it being as good a year as if I had to work in a TV studio every day, 5 days a week. Mm-hmm. Now, I worked really hard for 3 months in one spot, and I worked really hard for 8 weeks somewhere else. And then I did a lot of hustling on my own. But I had 2 good big pieces of cheese I would not have been able to eat because I was stuck in that corner of the maze eating the little cheese. Mm-hmm. Now, no guarantee the big cheese will be there next year.
Right.
And there's that frustration, it's the frustration of looking into an empty book. And sometimes you have to trust God that it will start to fill itself up.
I have so much commentary about what you
comment, please.
I also, I keep a running spreadsheet. So and I'm sorry if this is redundant, but before I did this, so you go, what's your skill set? So I was an accountant. And a CPA. And then I worked in finance. But with that said, now that's I've been much more longer, almost a comic than I did those jobs. So this definitely has defined me and my identity. But anyway, all that to say that I am very good at my books and records. And I was looking at my 2022 as well, because we're almost at the end of the year. And from a stand-up money perspective, I think like one of my better years. And then I did do some supplemental accounting kind of work because I had to, and I had no choice. But the thing is, and it's so funny you said what you said. So I there was a corporate, it was an asset management group. I did something for them in February, and then they hired me 2 other times.
Yeah, so wow.
It was like a beautiful, and when I say, and by the way, these things were like 10 blocks from my house. I mean, it was like amazing.
Boom.
And wow. For people that don't understand how much we schlep, not travel, schlep. It's schlepping. So to do something like that and get paid so well, it's like the equivalent of 20 gigs. So,
and along those lines, I was turning down $2,500 an hour. I was turning down before the pandemic $2,000 an hour because I was holding out for $2,500 an hour on certain appearance gigs.
Right.
Now they were hard appearance gigs doing auctioning work, and now anyway, it's amazing how if you open yourself up, well, you don't realize, or the comment I'll make on your comment is, you don't realize you're doing well sometimes until you look back.
Right. Yes. Correct. And then to get to your point about the empty book, and I've used this example so many times. If you ever watch Joan Rivers' documentary, right? There's a scene. It's priceless. And every comic that's certainly watched it, it resonated with. She has an old-fashioned date book. I have an old-fashioned date book as well. Some of us still use that. And she starts flipping it and she goes, look, empty, empty, empty. She's in her multi-million-dollar apartment on Fifth Avenue. She's Joan Rivers. She's a pioneer. She's been around. She's and she's worried about not working. Jay Leno, as we know, goes out every weekend. I mean, there's still an insecurity about it. So right now I have a few things booked, but certainly my January is all open except one thing. I'm freaking out. out.
I'll go crazy for you on a minute here. There's also two approaches here. For me, there's a few people who keep an eye out for me. You know, it's what do you do? What do you do while you're waiting for God to provide?
Mm-hmm.
That's the challenge. And it's funny. They say there are some people I have seen who gave up everything to be a comedian. I'm trying to think of somebody that I know a guy. I'm almost afraid of having common friends listen to the podcast for a second, but I know a person or two who gave up a job. Let's make it as a firefighter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Gave it up before the pension, like at the 15-year mark or whatever it was, because I'm on the brink of being famous. Oops. There's something to be said too of maybe comedy should be your side hustle and not your full hustle, and I am going, there's something to be said about also being aware of the cheese moving and knowing the patterns. Now, using your Joan Rivers line of, listen, if you look at the year I had, I was able to I had that moment that I'm having now to a different degree. I'm actually in a good mental space this year. But right now, let's say the book is empty. There's 2 or 3 things I might get for the second half of the year, but right now, that's in God's hands. There's 2 or 3 big things I might get for the first half of the year, but right now, that's in God's hands. I was going through the same spot last year where I don't think I really made my big money till June. Let's make it. And in June, I had a loved one pass away. A cousin of mine died, and I was able. Now, it was an empty week. It's an empty month. And I was able to drop everything and be a good uncle to my nieces and nephews. I was able to be there. I think I was where God wanted me to be.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if that happened during a month I was busy, I don't take days off. Outside of unless my own mother or father is sick, I will not take a day off from work, because every day you take off from work is a day someone else is auditioning for your job.
Mm-hmm. Right.
For real.
Right.
For real. Every day, it's the story of Wally Pipp. You've heard the story of Wally Pipp before, right? Wally Pipp was a first baseman for the New York Yankees. Speed through the story. He takes a day off, says, let the new kid play. And the new kid was a man named Lou Gehrig, who played for the next 11 years straight. There's more nuance to that story,
Right.
but put that in your head. When you have a job creating, playing, or you're in a competitive field where there's only 10, 100 jobs like yours in whatever city you're in, every day you're off is a day someone else is trying to get your job. But my point about the empty book, and I hope I'm not depressing your listeners, but this is the stuff I talk, you have to figure out, how do you enjoy / make the most of the blank pages? Should I be writing on TikTok? Should I be writing stand-up jokes? So some of the things I'm talking about on my podcast is trying to get back to creating clear vision. I just had a guest on. You should listen to not the episode I'm airing today, but the one I just aired on Monday.
The Tom Kelly Show.
The Tom Kelly Show podcast. No, but hang on. Let's make this me and you for a minute here.
Okay.
Jim Carell, a life coach who wrote a book about jumping into your dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And the powerful thing was, her line was, if you set a vision for where you want to be in a year and work backwards for what steps you need to be to get there. And if you think about it right now, you and I, in a year, we are going to be, if we make it 53 weeks instead of 52, 53 weeks from now is the futuristic year of 2024.
Mm-hmm.
where do you want to be in 2024? I can't even say 2023 yet.
Right, right.
But what vision do you have for a year and 1 week out? And then work backwards on the steps. And that it was a very powerful conversation that I think is useful to men and women in our stage of life. And that's my inspiration. Now, let's be fun for a minute. Is there anybody that you've seen on stage? And I know I've been on some of the same stages as you, so I'll give you the answers if you don't have it. But there's a few people you see perform, you're like, what the fuck are you doing? You do not belong on, like, it's just like you're eating up stage that other comedians could have. You're not really into it, and you're risking your marriage and kids for this. You're not that good.
I say it all the time.
Okay. And what's funny sometimes when you look at the empty book, you wonder if that's God's way of saying, go be an accountant, or is that God's way of saying, have the faith and make the best of your time? And that's a decision you have to make on the inside. So
you've mentioned God a lot, which is okay by me. I'm a woman of faith.
Are you?
I'm a woman of faith that doesn't practice it as much as I talk about that I'm a woman of faith. But I will say that I'll answer my empty book question. And I might have said this in our car conversation. But I have said it on my podcast. For 10 years at least, I've talked about doing a one-woman show about my great-grandmother that came from Cyprus.
Okay.
And through some things this year, I took a class with somebody who has a one-man show, and we did an online thing. Anyway, long story short, and I've written, like, when COVID happened, like everybody else, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Now I got the time to do this. Joe DeVito had the best line. He goes, you know what COVID taught me? That I don't have a book in me. I was just like, that was exactly that's exactly it. So anyway, all this to say, I try to go back to, like what you say, this is where God wants me to be. Like, January's open. December was not as busy as it was last December. Because when I did all these holiday parties, and I had none this year, and it keeps pointing me to doing this project, which I've started. I'm not saying I'm anywhere near done, but I'm also now, like, I engaged this person that I met to help me, kind of, because he's done it before. Because I knew I needed some guidance. Like, a one-person show is completely different from what we do, and especially if you're doing it about somebody else. So that's my goal, and that's where I want to be. That's where I want to be in 2023, is like, have this thing on its feet.
All right, so there you go. So like 2023, if we're setting a 1-year goal for you, and I'm stealing someone else's shtick, her line was, you have to write it down and hang your dream somewhere public that you see it all the time. You have to write it in the present tense. So I am hosting or starring in a one-woman show that I wrote about my grandma from Cyprus. That would be your sentence to write down. And then you work backwards. What are the steps? Well, somebody's going to write it. If you and I were even going to do a 12-month process here, December, you're going to have to book it at the Argyle Theater in Babylon.
Right.
No, but like, work backwards here. What's month 11? Maybe a booking somewhere else. Okay. But let's work from the beginning. Month number 1 is maybe you have to outline it. Month number 2 is you write it. Month number 3 is you workshop it with a coach. Month number 4 is try it in a small room.
Right.
Whatever. And I'm making up a path for you.
Right.
The steps in between are pretty fuzzy, but that would be that woman's advice. And, and if this is a podcast about comedy, it's, maybe you got to set comedy goals again. And that's the stage I'm going through, is what are the goals I'm setting again? Who do I want to be? Who is Tom Kelly? It's very existential, because again, I've moved away from it's what do you do when the path isn't clear? Where do you go when you have the free time? I've had several life coaches and one psychic suggest I meditate. And I go hot and cold on God, if I'm being blunt about faith. It's funny, I'm watching the clock. I should go to church for a little bit today. It's the anniversary of my Italian grandfather's birthday. Or today is his birthday, my dead grandpa's birthday. And I usually like to at least light a candle for the guy. And then there are moments where I'm like, God. And I don't go like you. I don't know if I'm going to church once a month to be preachy about it. And you get into God's plan. But is it God's plan or is it what you're working towards and things find you? I don't know. I use the word God pretty freely.
I think he puts things in front of you. I mean, you can't just sit around and wait, as we know. I think it's I think he gives you the tools. It's just a matter of what you do with them. And then you have to believe, and this is the hard one, I think, that when it doesn't work out the way you want it to work out, it's because you're to be someplace else. And it's hard. It's hard to wrap your head around that because we have something called egos and they get bruised. And also you feel like, oh my God, I put so much time and effort into this. And I mean, we've put a lot of time and effort into stand-up comedy, into going to these clubs and wherever. And
I also encourage my listeners, and it's funny, I always get nervous with people who listen to this show, is you also have to invest your energy and time into things that are more wholesome too.
Correct.
That are build buildings built on more stable foundations. How about that for the smartest thing I'll say today? Because what happens, like I just saw a comedian who had a great 30-minute story about how he almost sold a TV show. I got two of those. Two of those, and they were good shows. Gimmicks I invested a lot of my emotional energy into. You want to make sure, like there are moments where, like, it's funny. I've been going through this big thing of, if I knew I would be where I would be, what would I have said yes to or not? There was one girl in 2013. If I knew the party would end 6 years later, would I have invested more in that relationship? I don't know. That's a big, and I never was the type of person who wasted my energy on what ifs, and I'm doing a lot of that lately. Not even necessarily what ifs on what if I did this back then, but it's more of a, was I happy with that decision now if I had to make it again tomorrow?
All right. So
that's and I don't know why I derailed onto that real.
No. It's all good. It's all good. It's I want to just turn to let's talk about you personally, and then I want to ask you something about stand up, and we can talk for like hours and hours. So forgetting the TikTok, I mean that is a big thing, but just sort of stand up in general. I'm trying to watch some specials. I want to see what other people are doing and stuff. And sometimes I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, it's okay. And then sometimes I'll be like, oh, that's clever, but did it warrant this person having this hour special? And I'm not doing it out of jealousy. I'm doing it as a comedian.
No,
there's also a big climate for politics, and I know you stay away from it. I'll just make some snarky comments, but I don't do a deep dive.
I would love to do, it's funny. I would love to do it. I just have yet to find an audience that wants to follow me in it.
Right.
Listen, I would love, and I think every comedian believes it. Every person believes it. I'm the voice of reason. I'm the one who knows what's going on. Correct. And I find my politics are probably sometimes left of center and sometimes right of center. And I'm zigzagging on what I think is the voice of reason. That's right. And so you get into, I find every time you tell a joke that goes down the middle, you alienate two fans.
Right. That's why
if I follow my heart with political humor, is there a way to say I'm a little nervous about Joe Biden's age while thinking Donald Trump is an insurrectionist? Is there a way to say Trump might be right about issue 1, 2, and 3, but is still a piece of crap? you know, and the problem is if you even say Trump was right about issue 1, 2, and 3, you are a jerk for agreeing with issue 1, 2, and 3. You know, the hard part with listen, I really miss the internet circa 2011 when I was the only nerd. Like, it's funny. I'm nostalgic for MySpace and early Facebook.
Oh my God.
I miss seeing what people ate for dinner. I miss knowing what your kitty Snowball did. And I really don't need to know who the hell Ellen Karis voted for this year. I don't.
By the way, you never will know. I don't post the sticker. I voted. I don't do anything. And I'll just give you my quick story about politics on the internet, you know, on Facebook and all that other kind of stuff. I mean, if somebody wants to have a conversation with me, I'm totally fine with that. But so I do have opinions, and I do say them on my solo show, but and I'm not saying I am the voice of reason, but, you know, I think sometimes some of the things I say, it's like, I got to imagine like we all agree on these, you know, on these particular things. But 2008 or so, I remember George Bush was in office, and I think I said something, and then people commented, 2 people got into a fight. 2 people that don't know each other got into a fight, were then DMing me saying they were going to kick the so-and-so's ass. The other one's like, should I call the cops? I'm like, oh my God, what is going on? And then the next thing I know, Tom, it was like the day was gone. Like, you know, it's 6 o'clock. I'm just like, what happened?
And neither of those people got closer to the other in opinion. Right. And I'll find even with this political conversation, like with this candidate, Tom Sullivan, I'm helping out from, again, the most American human being I know. But I don't necessarily love all Republican politics. Mm-hmm. But he is the human being you want in office. I mean, again, saved 50 lives on 9/11, right? He evacuated his floor on 9/11. Everybody on the floor above him died. Saved 50. If you talk to my mother, 100 million, but probably 50. He says 50. My mom and his mom say 100. 50 people on 9/11. Was covered in soot. One of those people in the awful pictures, covered in soot. He's an Army reservist, was shoveling on September 12th, has done 4 deployments as a reservist. And now I have active duty friends who have done 2 and 3, you know, for over the same period of time. Speeding to the story, the most American human being I know. And he's actually the kind of guy, John McCain style, trying to reach across the aisle. And you're in this point where there are people like John McCain was the worst man ever. You know, like it's like we used to say nobody could get worse than Bush. Nobody could get worse than Mitt Romney. Nobody can get worse than or more divisive than Romney or whatever. And then we got Trump. How divisive is that? And listen, Biden, who I think is, say what you want, I think he's a decent guy trying to bring people to somewhere. You know, he's sure less divisive than an AOC or whoever else is on the other side. So I guess the scary part is nobody rallies for the centrist. That's a Stephen Colbert quote. You know, my guy is probably a right, you know, he's left of right, not quite center, but left of right. I am left and right of center, but nobody rallies in that zone. So if you say something in the sensible zone, you know, the best you're going to get, you know, like if Ellen Karis says, I don't know, I believe in doing our best to provide healthcare, but also respect balancing a budget in a normal way. Well, we don't care, you know, like now that might be the sensible, you know, it's what, you don't care about sick people? You don't care about, you know, Ellen doesn't care about sick people. Ellen hates sick people. Ellen, you're an awful human being. Go, you know, I'm going to abort a baby in your name. You know, like it's
right.
It's
right.
some
people get very dramatic. They get very dramatic and they don't listen to exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
And you know, I think to me, we should be getting, and now we're going off on that, but you know, in terms of what I feel, it's just like the government is here to protect us. I mean, just really the basic stuff. I think it's just personally, and I don't care if it's Republican or Democrats, it's too big. there's way too many, there's just.
But it works in Canada. But it works in Canada. Ellen. What are you saying? It works in Canada. Like that. There's the problem is, and the hard part is, my opinion aligns with yours. It needs fixing, and I don't see incentive to fix things. I mean, if you look at and again, look up this Tom Sullivan story. It's what I'm obsessed with this week. He won on election night by 250 votes, ballots. Actually, he's so friggin' honorable. He won't say it's not a vote, Tom. It's a ballot. Well, vote is an easier word to say. Tom, it's a ballot. So honorable. He's so honorable at times. I think he's unelectable, but he's like, Tom, you have to say ballot. It's a ballot. Okay, fine. But he won by 250 ballots election night. They counted mail-in votes, and he was up by 8. There was a second count. He was up by 1. Then there was another ballot where they did a hand recount, and there were 4 ballots frozen. He was down by 1 after the hand recount, and was like the kind of guy, all right, if I'm down by 1, whatever, I'm fine. But let's see what these other 4 ballots are. And then his opponent started suing in a court where her mom is the clerk.
Oh, there you go. That's fair. No,
I don't think, and to be fair, and he's very clear about saying this, I'm not accusing malfeasance. I want to say that out loud, but I am accusing take your mom's signature off the documents. Right. And again, but you get into this thing but the rules are so murky. And I went to a couple of the court cases where, God bless the guy, the appellate court, mm-hmm. They're right. So what happened was there was an additional 100 votes or 94 votes that the bipartisan board of elections said they were flawed. Either they weren't sealed properly in the envelope. Maybe they didn't sign the signature. Whatever it is, something was wrong. And, one of the appellate court judges said, well, these people think they voted. Doesn't their vote deserve to be counted? Then another person says, well, how do you cure the vote? And it becomes, how do you cure the ballot? Cure the ballot. And what's happening now is, here it is Hanukkah and Christmas week, and this guy is running around handing out ballots, handing out cure forms and trying to find, he's basically stalking voters during Hanukkah. And he's also now running down in the Rockaways, where half of the people in the Rockaways go fly south for the winter.
Mm.
Now now the election is not about cure. It's not who gets the most ballot. It's not about who gets the most votes. It's not about democracy now. It's about who's going to cure the most forms in favor of them. Mm-hmm. Even if my guy wins or the other person wins, this isn't democracy. Even if my person wins. And anyway, this whole thing that I'm talking to you about, and I don't mind if you cut it out, but you asked me about talking about politics. There's something that cares about me. I care about. But it's pretty long. It's pretty awful radio.
Well, the thing is, it's got to be. I mean, if we're turning it into stand up. I don't know how you mix that in the mixer, and make it funny.
Well, and for me to do it, I feel like all the hosts talking about politics, they're dumbing it down. They're making one guy the bad guy. They're making it cartoonish. And this, like when you talk about being a real human being in political comedy. Biden's old. Well, actually, I think it's a little more nuanced than that. I think he's an older guy who's a car salesman, politician, doing his best to get people to talk to each other.
Right.
And we can make jokes later. Right. But my point is, you have to turn him into a cartoon character. You got to turn Trump. And I almost want to take Trump off the table because he's a whole other kind of divisive. But let's make it DeSantis. You got to make him a car salesman too, and maybe he's dumber. Whatever. And in my case, my guy, my candidate, who is running against a woman, a second generation politician whose mom had the job. He doesn't want to dumb it down, and now you get into set up punchline. You got to tell your story, 15 seconds punchline, laugh every 15 seconds, bullet point every 15. But if you get into being a good human being about politics, this is a 5-minute story about why I don't talk politics is I can't get my political views, into a nuanced 15-second punchline without turning into a shithead.
Right. It's a discussion. And then it just doesn't.
Yeah. But listen, and you just made a great point, and I'm sure you're going to edit this 5 minutes I just did out. No. All right. Well, if there's anybody still here, please send me a tweet. I'd love to know. I haven't bored the living hell out of you, but yeah. And I think you're going to another point of there's just too much content.
Right.
And I think a lot of people have deals. I mean, listen, Ellen, if you want to do a one-woman show and do like Ellen, you're doing a radio or TV show, just 2 people on Zoom in 2 living rooms.
Right.
We didn't even care enough to take the crosstown bus to see each other in person on this. That's how easy it's gotten.
Right. I know. I know. Absolutely. I have to ask you this last question. Why? I'm just going to be just very direct. Why are you still single?
Oh, I think we hit a lot. I think it's a mix. Yeah, see, this is the stuff we should have done. We should almost stop and do the damn podcast over. I think either I am too picky or I'm married to my career.
Uh-huh. Oh, okay.
And the other short answer, if I'm being just blunt and human, the women I was willing to give up the career for may not have loved me in return.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think to be a good comedian, yeah, most of the great comedians I know are generally bad or mediocre spouses or self-centered spouses. And I have been too self-centered to really take that leap.
Mm. Well,
I'm going to write that sentence down and put it on my dating profile now. And I'll go one more step if you want me to be funny.
Yeah,
I'm addicted to the jokes. You know, honestly, I like it when you build an act and you're making blank grand a week, being single, and those jokes work. Like, I had a great girlfriend in 2015. Her name was Brittany. She is married now, and I found myself. She was cute. She was smart. She was a little annoying on certain things, but we'll put that on the side. She, suddenly you can't go out and say, hey, I'm single. I've been single so long. Mom and dad got me Match.com. Suddenly the glow in my eyes went away on that joke. Suddenly a big, it's funny. Every time I fixed that hole, the jokes that I would make about that hole were not funny, which then created a second hole.
Right. Well, because it wasn't really authentic anymore. You're playing, now you're really playing a character. Listen, I hope my husband never leaves me, because I have a lot of marriage material and I wouldn't know, I wouldn't know what to do. It's a pity that you're walking around in the wild, and we really need to rectify that.
Well, you have me back on the podcast. We'll talk about those issues. Okay.
Oh, you're on. You're on. You're on. You're definitely on. I love you. I think you're such a great talent. You're a great, like I said, a great human. Everything that you do to me is successful, and you mastered the art of, like I said, warm up. By the way, I've had RC, Joey, Mike Burton, Vince August. The only one I haven't really had is Richie Byrne, who I just did a show with, and who said,
and listen, and there's some other great new people out there. Regina DeChico, I hear amazing things.
I've had Regina. Yeah, I had Regina.
Who else is out there nowadays? Ryan Reese, Paul Mercurio. I mean, there's nobody doing a bad job at it that I know of.
But it's a really, really specific skill set, and certainly not just anybody can do it, or anybody with comedy chops can do it. I think it just takes a certain person, and also keep up that energy level. People don't really realize it. And the fact that you did it at 7 a.m, where nothing is funny, like I'm, I bet I.
Well, you know what? Actually, I'm going to give you one. God, we're going to end up doing a 2-hour podcast post, but it's 7 a.m, and I think it's something to pause and take into other shows. Those people at 7 a.m. were the best damn crowds. The 7 a.m. crowd, they were schlubs from the Midwest who wanted to laugh and be a part of something bigger. I will argue the audiences that now go to the 10 o'clock shows. And I think they're at, I don't even want to name the shows because I may have to work there or see these people. But there are a horde of people who go because then they just have nothing better to do. Mm-hmm. But the 7 a.m. shows, and even the people who have nothing better to do, they're there because they want to be a part of something bigger.
Mhm.
And does that apply to all comedy? Is that something to just look at the crowd when you look at a crowd and you kind of hate them? Maybe we should all be thinking, these are people who want to be a part of something bigger. They want to laugh with someone else. Otherwise, they'd be watching their phones.
Right. No, it's well, like I said, it's incredible that you've been able to do that. You have your the Tom Kelly Show podcast. I'm going to subscribe to it, by the way. You're on Spotify and iTunes. Your website is the Tom Kelly Show. Is that correct?
TomKellyShow.com, my friend.
.com. You're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Follow Tom.
I'm also on Venmo, Match.com, Farmers Only, Black People Meet. I'm on all those.
Match.com. Listen, we're gonna fix.
Oh,
that.
don't turn into a Greek grandma until we do the next show. I know you got to run, so I'll let you go.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you. All right, everybody. I'm Ellen Karis. You know where to find me at Greek Chick Comic, Twitter, Instagram. EllenKaris.com is my website, and Facebook, Greek Goddess of Comedy. Thank you so much. Until next time. Bye.